And let's proceed to the last final session, that is updates on global Sharia rulings. We have Yang Mulia Dr. Ungku Rabiatul Adawiyah as the moderator, and we have our esteemed distinguished panelists, Yang berbahagia Datuk Profesor Dr. Muhammad Akram Laldin, Executive Director ISRA Research Management Center ISRA RMC. We have virtually Yang berbahagia Tan Sri Dr. Muhammad Daud Bakar, Sharia Scholar Malaysia, Sheikh Dr. Bashir Aliu Umar, Sharia Scholar Nigeria, Sheikh Isam Ishaq, Sharia Scholar Bahrain, and last but not least, Sheikh Professor Dr. Muhammad El Ghari, Sharia Scholar Saudi Arabia, all joining us virtually. With that, I invite Yang Mulia Dr. Ungku Rabiah and Yang berbahagia Datuk Profesor Dr. Muhammad Akram Laldin. Tafaddalu. Over to you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah rabbil alamin wa bihi nasta'in. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa hlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Alhamdulillah, thank you, Madam Moderator. Thank you, the organizer, and also especially thank you to the participants who are still patiently sitting in the hall, even for the last session of a 2 days Kliff. I'm greatly honored to be given the opportunity to moderate the last session for Kliff 2022, and also to be able to address a very esteemed panel. So today we have with us two esteemed scholars joining virtually, and also one esteemed scholar joining us physically. So we have with us none other than Tan Sri Dr. Muhammad Daud Bakar, and we have also the honor to welcome Sheikh Professor Dr. Muhammad Al Ghari from Saudi Arabia, and we have also physically with us Professor Dr. Muhammad Akram Laldin. We are supposed to also welcome Sheikh Isam, so I'm not sure whether he will be joining us later. Maybe we can have some updates from the organizer. So since we are actually running short of time, I will directly go to give the chance to the panelists to give their opinions. And for the first round, I will actually ask everyone to give updates of significant Sharia issue or resolution that they have come across, especially with regards or in response to the post-pandemic situations in terms of economic recovery and how to create a more resilient, efficient, sustainable, and inclusive Islamic finance. So if the scholars have updates of significant issues and Sharia ruling in relation to those aspects, I would welcome them to really update the audience in this regard. So first of all, I would like to start with the panel at a furthest location from us. So we are giving the preference to Sheikh Dr. Muhammad Al Ghari to first voice his point of view and also updates. تفضل يا شيخنا.
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Although al-aqrabuna awla bil ma'roof, but you have chosen to start with the most distant participant, and I'm happy to be the first. I think there is a lot of, not a lot, but a number of challenges that are facing Islamic banking from Sharia point of view. But the most prominent and worthy of more discussion is the challenge of meeting the requirement of the new backward-looking rate like SOFR and SONIA. As you know, after the demise of the LIBOR, it was forced upon the world an alternative. And although it clearly makes very little difficulty as far as conventional finance is concerned, it was quite a challenge for Islamic banking. And fortunately, a solution was attained and adapted, alhamdulillah, by the IIFM and developed by certain experts in the Islamic banking. And it is simply based on two murabahas. One is done initially, and the other is done after the information about the rate is clear at the end of the contract. But unfortunately, many Sharia scholars either they are confused or they are reluctant to accept this solution, not realizing that this is a must. I mean, there is no possibility of clinging to LIBOR. Yes, there is something like LIBOR, like what is called term SOFR, which is forward-looking, but this is limited in use, and chances are central banks in many Islamic countries might not adapt the term SOFR like rates, and they insist on the backward-looking rate. Many Sharia scholars they think that we are adapting a murabaha contract with the variable rate of profit. Certainly, variable rate profit in murabaha, although some scholars believe that it is possible from Sharia point of view, the majority of the scholars they are correctly objecting to this variable murabaha contract, variable rate, because it introduced jahala in the price. The price becomes uncertain. And this is the kind of things that void any exchange contract from Sharia point of view. Now, it is very important and incumbent upon us in a gathering like this to really make things clear to the audience, especially those who are connected to banking and Islamic banking, by clarifying the fact that these are two separate independent murabahas. In other words, the first murabaha is a separate and independent contract meeting all the Sharia requirements for the correctness of an exchange contract. The price is known, the quantity, the date, etc., etc. And at the end of the term of the first contract, we enter into another independent, separate murabaha contract, which is again meeting all the requirements of a correct contract. Now, this is based on undertaking or wa'd from the customer of the bank to enter into another contract. But this is not a problem because Islamic banking, since the very beginning, was actually utilizing this wa'd concept in many products and with approval of Sharia boards. So this is no different. In other words, the bank and the customer enter into one murabaha with all the requirements of a correct and valid sale contract are met. And then there is an undertaking from the customer that he will enter into another murabaha at the end of the contract, the profit of which is based at the then known rate index or benchmark, which has been adapted in the agreement. So, unless this picture is clear to us, and we, stop the lengthy and confusing discussion about this, it makes it difficult for Islamic banking actually to move forward and into more innovation and development and meet all the globally accepted requirements for banking. This is an issue I thought it is important to bring to this forum, and thank you very much, Madam Chairman.
Thank you very much, Sheikh Dr. Al-Gharri, for raising an interesting development in terms of the product to overcome the issue of pricing mechanism for Islamic financing post LIBOR discontinuation that we have seen recently. I think based on that explanation, actually there are other sub-issues that can be raised, but I will reserve that so that we can listen to the other panelists first before we then open for more questions and queries about those issues. Okay, so I would like now to invite, I can see now we have our third panelist actually, fourth panelist already coming, that is Sheikh Dr. Bashir Ali Umar. Ahlan, welcome Sheikhuna. Okay, just now we actually started with Sheikh Al-Gharri being the furthest from us in Malaysia and Kuala Lumpur. So maybe the next person to speak will be Sheikh Dr. Bashir. I hope you don't mind speaking now to update on the significant Sharia ruling or Sharia issue that as an update to the audience. Maybe you can choose one significant issue that you want, or Sharia ruling that you may want to focus on.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Actually, I am the farthest because I am in Nigeria, 2 hours after Sheikhna Sheikh Al-Gharri. Yes, I will only comment on the issue that I made under discussion, the issue of the pricing regarding the post-labor period that we are going into. I think it is a very significant challenge, and as Sheikhna Sheikh Al-Gharri explained, the effort of the IIFM is a very welcome development to find a way to accept what has been imposed, actually, because it's an imposition. The Islamic banks must operate within the global financial system. They are left with no option except to find alternatives and to find outlets. And alhamdulillah, the Sharia is very is robust and is quite dynamic in adopting in finding solutions. Meanwhile, it is definitely quite a challenge because the issue of gharar is something that is regarded by some scholars as even more serious than the issue of riba, because it is something that that cannot be acceptable. It devours the wealth of others unjustly, and it has to be avoided at all costs, especially if it's a major gharar like we find in the case of the SOFR, the backward-looking SOFR. Meanwhile, we do have contracts that could be based on flexible exchange rates, or there may be the element of lack of predictability with regards to the exchange rate like we have in Ijara contracts. And alhamdulillah, most of our sukuk are structured around Ijara. So we may have to end up limiting the kind of contracts available to Islamic banks pending a solution that will find acceptability along a general spectrum of Sharia scholarship and practice of Islamic banks. We have at least the sukuk. They will be saved from this because most of the sukuk are ijara sukuk. I mean, it gives us a little comfort pending the introducing of solutions. At this juncture, I will just limit myself to this issue now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sheikh Dr. Bashir, for again highlighting the issue of pricing post-LIBOR, especially on the need to avoid gharar in the pricing mechanism. So I would like now to allow another Tan Sri Dr. Muhammad Daud Bakar to also give us an update of a significant Sharia issue or ruling from his part.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah wa bihi nasta'in. Thank you, Professor Dr. Unku Rabi'ah Al-Adawiyah, esteemed panelists, Sheikh Dr. Al-Ghari, Professor Sheikh Dr. Bashir Ali Umar, and my colleague Dr. Akram Baldin, dearest and respected participant. Give me great pleasure to speak to everyone in the last session of the Kliff. I'm speaking a bit far from Kuala Lumpur. I'm now in my hometown in Abustar. Just arrived last few minutes or so. Alhamdulillah, having the opportunity to be connected through online. For me, I would like to focus on three issues, but briefly, I won't be long. From what I have seen, that requires a lot of deliberation and perhaps reconsideration if possible. I will start off with the issue of IOF Sharia Standard 59 on the issue of Qalbudain, restructuring, rescheduling, and what have you. I think the standard has been issued, the fatwa has been accepted and issued by many Sharia boards of the world. But the only issue I wanted to raise is on the issue of who has the ability and the authority to decide on very definition of solvency. It is up to the scholars or up to the bankers and their respected committee members. Because the solvency is not Sharia issue per se, it is up to the market standard to define. And this is something that we need to continue discussing, because yes, we have the illah prohibiting, allowing qalbudain, restructuring, but the tahqiqul manat, the exact quantification of the reason of the hukum, either allowing or disallowing, for me is up to the data, up to the market practice, up to the standard which is acceptable to the Ahlul Sina'ah, the people of the industry. So this is something I wanted to put, on the certain stage for the scholars to really, when we issue the fatwa, we have to follow through the fatwa by giving the sufficient guidance to the industry. Otherwise, we are still debating on the same thing over and over. Second thing, Dr. Unku, is about the fintech technology. I think in the last 2 days or so, and before this, we've been talking about the fintech technology and how it affected, or it has affected the Islamic finance contracts, murabaha, ijara, musharaka, and al-qabad, and delivery position and whatnot. I'm quite concerned by looking into the fatwa worldwide, because some of the scholars, I'm not saying they are wrong, but I'm putting this for discussion because they are not that happy to accept the split-second contract using the technology, because nowadays murabaha can take place from one party to another in split second, in millisecond, not even 1 second, not even half of this half second. But this is something we need to really redefine the meaning of al-qabad position and the transfer of right and liabilities within millisecond as we move on to the next level of technology, which is more faster and quicker. We need to have some definition of the technology and the fatwa, the measurement of the fatwa with regard to the issue of whatever under the fintechs. The third and last one is about screening. Just wanted to bring the capital market element a bit. I think Dr. Al-Ghari and myself in the last, before pandemic and during pandemic, we were given the case of Visa and MasterCard, whether they are compliant or not. Interestingly, Dr. Al-Ghari, you might remember that discussion that we had. I cannot recall during or before pandemic. We have reviewed and we have reversed our fatwa that used to be MasterCard and Visa. They were deemed as non-compliant and they were not included in the Sharia list of the Islamic indices of the world. But after that discussion, we came to realize that they are not having the issue of interest because they don't issue any loan. They just the facilitator. They just take the commission for issuing the credit card. The creditors are the banks, commercial banks, not the Visa and MasterCard. So we have reversed the decision that we have, adopted all along. That brings me to new issue now. I really, having the dilemma of with the fintechs and the e-commerce and whatnot. We have the issue of last month that goods and commodities are being transferred from big cities to the small city to the smaller city and have you. So we are having the warehousing industry, which is booming like no one business in many parts of the world. The issue now, Dr. Al-Ghari, Dr. Bashir, and Dr. Akram, how do we measure the halalness or the Islamicity of warehousing? Whether we should look into the time of warehousing, 1 week, 1 month, 6 months, the quantity of it, because warehousing will accept liquor, non-halal food, pork, and whatnot. And many banks are stuck, many funds are stuck. And this is a new business, good business, giving the best margin of investment nowadays. The best product, as we speak, will be the warehousing fund, the rich fund, focusing on warehousing. So I do have the answer for that. Perhaps we can open for our collective discussion if the time permit to see. And this is the need of the Islamic world of warehousing. I will stop at that, Dr. Nku, and thank you very much for your kind listening.
Okay, thank you, Tan Sri, for highlighting 3 very important issues that may have received Sharia ruling but may require further deliberation to really see the real implementation of it in terms of Qalbudda and how to determine insolvency and in terms of fintech, how the nanosecond transaction can be construed to be compliant with the contractual requirements under the Sharia, and also the perhaps different way of putting our screening criteria to adapt to the different way of things being done given the post-pandemic nature of the business transactions. Now, last but not least, I would now like to invite our last panel, who is now physically with us in the hall, Professor Dr. Muhammad Akram Laldin, to give his updates.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. Thank you very much, respected Professor Dr. Nku Rabiah, my respected and beloved scholars, Sheikh Al-Ghari, Tan Sri Daud Bakar, and also Dr. Bashir Aliyu, and all the participants. Alhamdulillah, first of all, I would like to thank the organizer for inviting me to share some of my thoughts on the topic that we are discussing today. And I think just a quick updates that I'm going to go through. Maybe first I will start with some of the resolution that the SAC of Bank Negara have already given. You see, first is on, I think earlier on, Fadilatul Sheikh Al-Gharri discussed about the pricing benchmark, and I would like to share that, of course, I mean, as all of us know that LIBOR is coming to the end. So, I mean, that the conventional market, they are looking at, you see, different pricing benchmark. And I think a lot of discussion have taken place in Malaysia as well as outside Malaysia. And among the decision that have been taken by the SAC of Bank Negara is the adoption of RFR, or risk-free rate, as an alternative benchmark to LIBOR. So this decision is not new. It has been taken quite some time in 2020. You see, and there are, I think, long discussion that we had with in the SAC, and the gist, I think, of the discussion is that if I can read here, you see the what is mentioned in the adoption of RFR as an alternative benchmark rate to LIBOR, or as a fallback benchmark replacement rate after the permanent cessation of LIBOR, is permissible based on the following justification. First, the compounding methodology is merely an arithmetic method in determining the term rate, which does not affect compliance of the transactions with Sharia requirement. And second is uncertainty or gharar from the adoption of average RFR, or backward-looking term rate at the point of payment, is mitigated through proper determination and disclosure of the ceiling price and formula to derive the periodic payment amount to the customer at the inception of the contract. Now, when it comes to implementing it, you see, I believe that different mechanism has been devised by the people in the market, and Fadilatul Sheikh Al-Gharri did mention about it. So this is one of the decision that has been made by SAC. The other decision that I would like to highlight here is another decision. I mean, this is quite recent, which was taken by SAC on compounding profit for restructuring and also rescheduling of Islamic financing. As we know that as a result of the pandemic, you see, there are quite a number of issues related to, I mean, the ability of people particularly to pay. So I think as a result of that, SAC have deliberated and discussed on this issue of compounding profit in the process of restructuring and rescheduling, R&R, in Islamic financing. And I think the decision that was taken by SAC, even though I think some people might not appreciate why we disallow compounding, but at the end of the day, we have to balance between the profitability of the institution as well as the maslahah and also the situation on the ground. As all of us know that there are a lot of people, okay, has been affected by the pandemic. So I think in making the judgment, the SAC have taken into account the interests of the financial institution as well as the interests of the people. Okay, so if I can just read to you, the SAC rule that Islamic financial institutions are not allowed to include an account for any accrued profit from the original financing in the new principal amount of R&R financing. This is because such practice will amplify the amount of profit on debts or compounding profit. Therefore, IFIs ensure that in executing R&R financing, one, the new principal amount of the R&R financing shall be equivalent to the outstanding principal amount of the original facility if there is no additional financing involved. And second, the amount of accrued profit and late payment charges, where applicable, from the original financing can be added to the total new debt obligation, but this amount cannot be capitalized in the calculation of the new profit, and the prohibition is applicable to R&R financing with all customer. I mean, there is no differentiation being made between solvent and also insolvent customers. Perhaps, I mean, there are quite a number of detail which is mentioned, even though the basis, the Sharia basis for the ruling, among others, the concept of siyasah syariah, you see, consideration of the harm that might inflict the customer, and also justice, ihsan, and whatnot. So quite a number of principles that has been used there as the justification by SAC. The final, perhaps, issue that I would like to highlight here is that I think there is a tendency nowadays in the market for the scholars to look into the maqasidic dimension, you see, in Sharia decision-making process. I think even in the screening process and whatnot, if you look into the, even in the conventional space, I mean, there is the ethical screening which has been embedded sometime in the screening process of some equities and whatnot. And the similar approach, perhaps, I think we can see there is a push, there is a move, you see, in the market now for even those who are involved in Sharia making decision to look beyond the fiqhi aspect into looking at the impact. But of course, I mean, this will entail a lot of data, a lot of research, a lot of work, you see, in order for us to ascertain whether a particular product, for example, it comply with the maqasid and not. But I think there are quite a number of work that has been done, as well as that is ongoing right now, to look into how we can integrate perhaps the maqasidic dimension. Of course, I mean the scholars, when they make a decision, maqasid is also in their mind, you see, and no scholars is going to make any decision which is harm to the market, which is harm to the people. But perhaps, I mean, how to do it systematically, a lot of work need to be done and a lot of research need to be done for us to move forward. Okay, I think I'll stop there, Prof. Unku. Perhaps if there is any discussion, we can move on, inshallah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Akram, for again highlighting about the pricing mechanism as per the ruling of the Sharia Pricing Council of Central Bank, Bank Negara Malaysia, as well as the rulings that we have regarding the rescheduling and restructuring, especially with regards to the moratorium that we had during the pandemic, and also the need to consider maqasid al-Sharia in coming out with the rulings. Now, I would like to bring the attention of the scholars and the panelists to the questions that have been posed in the Slido. And there are actually, I cannot see, yeah. Yeah, so the one that is there on the screen, oh, okay, I can see here. I think one of the question is the famous one about the Standard 59 of the IOFI, Sharia Standard. So there is a question about the opinion of the scholars regarding the impact of Standard 59 towards sukuk structuring. As it is stricter in nature, where there is a delisting even when the ratio is actually more than 50%, which is a khilaf mashhur in the Maliki school. So can I have one of the panelists who want to give their opinion on this?
Yeah, if I may,
Yes, please.
while waiting for the other scholars to join in as well, I think the one who asked the question is referring to the issue of listed sukuk, right, in the exchange, because the banking product, there's no listing, so it'll be easier it will be easier not to give the restructuring, and the product will lapse naturally, and the defaulter and the borrower, whatever, the customer cannot pay, and does it finish. But in the case of sukuk, the case will be different because we have capital market product. We have so many investors around the globe. When the sukuk cannot be restructured using the new structuring subject to the strict requirement of IOF, the issue will arise that is in the prospectus, it was mentioned clearly, the sukuk must be delisted if the ratio has increased some ratio. This is something that the capital market players are worried about, because sukuk is about capital market products. So this is something that I think the question was not on the Sharia issue, was on the listing requirement of the sukuk. So we need to put the thought together. Some of the fatwa, they were saying that we have to give the time for the sukuk to find the ways to top up and to do whatever necessary. And some were saying that we have to give the time, and the time is not. If the bad element cannot be top up within the time, and the sukuk will be delisted. We become delisted, then become over the counter, and people have to buy and sell, not in the exchange, but in the over the counter. That is the challenge. This is something we have not seen at the moment, but it could happen in the future. So I think the industry must come together to look into this issue. How can we facilitate the defaulting sukuk due to the ratio that is required and not able to be restructured at the end of the day? Thank you.
Thank you, Tan Sri, for responding to the question. So I think the question is also asking as to whether there can be any flexibility in terms of Sharia opinion to address the issue, because it's more in terms of tradability of the sukuk when it becomes predominantly constituted of debt. And as we know, the Sharia opinion in AOF on the prohibition of sale of debt with at a price which is not similar with the par value of the debt. So maybe we can have another opinion from the scholars whether there is a potential flexibility to be given to this type of sukuk when suddenly it breaches the ratio. Will it be amounting to automatic delisting, or can there be any flexibility in Sharia opinion?
I think, if you would allow me.
Yes, please, Sheikh.
Yes. I mean, of course, Sharia does not talk about delisting. It is Sharia is concerned with trading. And the listing and trading are two separate things, because you can delist a sukuk, but it remains traded between the over the counter. So we need really a more fundamental solution to this. And what we have adapted in the equity investment criteria, which is when a share falls out of the criteria, the solution is you sell it. Okay, so I think we should leave it to the sukuk holders that when the sukuk has gone out of the criteria by having more debt than 51%, for instance, they are obliged from Sharia point of view to get rid of it. And our responsibility is just to make the information available to them, inform the sukuk holders, look, it is based on established Sharia rulings. This sukuk should no longer be traded, but he has to get rid of it. I mean, by saying that we just will delist, that is not a solution. And furthermore, by saying that the issuer has to liquidate once the debt is above the benchmark is by itself is not a solution. It is actually very, very dangerous because it can be abused by the issuers. Whenever they want to liquidate, the only thing they need to do is to increase the debt in the composition of the assets, and therefore, legitimately, and no sukuk holder can object, they will liquidate whenever it is to their advantage. So we have to be very careful. I think the solution we have adopted in the equity investment criteria should be sufficient. And if everyone gets rid of his sukuk, then the market itself will take care of the solution. And furthermore, for those who do not care about the halal and haram and Sharia rulings, what can we do? It is their, I mean, their choice that to ignore this fact. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gary, for that clear explanation. Dr.
I'll
Malcolm.
just add a little bit what I mean. Our honourable scholars have said that. Of course, I think when we refer to Sharia Standard 59, as all of us know that, particularly the UAE market, you see, I mean, the IOP standard is mandatory over there. You see, yes, I mean, I would say that at the beginning there were some constraints, there were some, I mean, to a certain extent, kind of resistant, you see, in the market. But I'm seeing now that the market have started to adapt. I'm not going to comment on the 50%. Perhaps, I mean, that will be a scholarly debate, you see, whether it should be 50%, it should be less than 50%, I mean, that will take place. But what I'm trying to say is that, you see, when such restriction is being put by certain standards, you see, the market will try to adapt. And we have seen, you see, quite a number of issuance, you see, in which, I mean, since this is a standard that have to be followed, so we can see that slowly the market is adapting to it, and I believe that, you see, moving forward, that should be the way. I mean, when the Sharia scholars decide certain thing, we don't always ask for exception and whatnot, but you see, we try to make it to work, you see, based on the prevailing market situation, and try to overcome. You see, there might be certain situation that some exception is needed, and we are also giving some exception, of course, I mean, at the moment, but I think that how things should be moving forward. Allahu A'lam.
Thank you, Professor Dr. Akram. Any more comments?
Can I add something, please?
Yes, please.
I believe the impact of the Standard 59 on corporate finance is more visible and more critical than the impact on sukuk. Because what happens in most transactions for corporate finance is that the rate is changed every 3 months for a loan that is 3 years or something like this. And the way they do it, and have been doing it from the very beginning, is that after every 3 months, another tawarruq, murabaha, is entered into, and the proceeds are used to settle the first one, and then a new one is started with a new rate, taking into consideration the change in interest rate. This is not possible now under the Standard 59, because the standard require that a new murabaha is entered into, and it is left for at least 1 day in the account, the proceeds in the account of the customer, and it is up to him whether he wants to settle the first one or not, which means that the banking institution will be exposed, double exposed to this customer, which is not doable from a banking point of view. And unfortunately, this is the thing that we need to have a solution. And it is rather to go straight into a real solution rather than going around I mean, tricks, if you may say so. I mean, if I may say so, to pretend that we are meeting the requirement of the standard 59. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sheikh, for that. So we are actually having very limited time, and there are quite a number of questions being posed.
Just a little comment, Professor.
Yeah, please, Dr. Bashir.
Yes, I think this is a very sensitive issue, even though observance of the ratio and the what is mentioned in Standard 59 gives wide acceptability, which is what is required for the market. But then there are definitely a lot of constrictions that had to be addressed. And I think there needs to be a revisit of this, because the question, as pointed out by, as rightly pointed out, is not the question of the listing or delisting, is the question of tradability. I mean, if it is other than debt, we don't have a problem. Tradability will be done at par if it is regarded that the financial content of the asset pool is mostly cash, so it has to be transferred at par. The problem will come when there is when there are dates, a date that is also cash related, money related. The view of regarding the asset pool as an independent asset, I think it has to be seriously examined. Therefore, once you regard the asset pool as an independent asset, which is the way it is done when people, the moment the proceeds of shareholding, the moment they are converted into stock, then you don't talk about, there is no longer any relevance of talking about what is the proportion of this category of asset or this category of asset. It has become an asset class itself. There is the need to consider this, and I know it's not only in Maliki fiqh, but even in Hanbali fiqh, when you are talking of in the case of the situation of the interpretation of the hadith of the sale of the slave that has got money, the interpretation, the basis of the interpretation, the hadith gives us a basis for actually finding a solution of regarding the asset pool itself as an asset class, in which case the question of apportioning ratio of the assets is in need of re-examination. So this is just what but I think it is an area of significant conflict, and it is definitely a challenge for the sukuk issuers to bring the asset pool to the level of tradability, to the level of the asset mix as specified in the standard. But if it is regarded as an asset pool and people are free to trade with it because they are not after the cash content or the tangible content, they are after the asset itself as a class. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Bashir, for highlighting the main, the crux of the issue with regards to the construction of the portfolio consisting of a combination of debt and non-debt assets. So whether it's an issue of tabi' or whether it is really an issue of the trading of debt per se. Okay, so given that we are supposed to end by 6 actually, so I am very sorry because I could not really entertain the rest of the questions, but given my prerogative as the moderator, since I think 3 out of the 4 panelists actually touch about the pricing mechanism post-LIBOR, I would just like to get clarification from the scholars with regards to the basis, because the basis, most of the mechanism is about the mechanism, how to arrive at that price. but the basis of the calculation of the price, it seems that it is still very much attached towards the financial market costing of funds rather than the real economy kind of calculation of price. So just want to ask the opinion of the scholars, because I've also seen some of the proposals in the discussions by the Islamic Development Bank, by the AOF and whatnot, where they're talking about including inflation, including real economy consideration in determining the pricing in Islamic financing. So maybe some comments from the panelists as the last question for the day.
Yes.
Yes, please, Sheikh Al-Ghari.
Thank you very much for raising this important point. For the last maybe 20 years, people are talking about an alternative to LIBOR where the real profit is included, not the financial interest rate. And I think in almost all the proposals that have seen before, the problem was that if we are to consider the quote-unquote real profit or the profit in the real sector, we have to look backward. We have to look backward. And they said, oh, it's not possible. But here we are. I mean, the whole world is now looking backward. And I think we have an excellent opportunity today to really adapt some of these ideas. In other words, these two murabahas, why not rate the first murabaha profit based on the agreement between the two parties, either related to a going rate of some sort. But the second murabaha can take into consideration the profit of the sector or the profit of certain group of companies or the profit of the average in the economy or whatever, because we are free, we are looking backward. And but it is unfortunate that we cannot emancipate our institutions from the global system. We have to be part of the world, and although we have all what it takes to be independent, we are missing the will to be independent. Let us give this idea some thought and at least do it in one or two transactions and see whether it is beneficial to both parties. I believe it is going to be good for both parties, for the bank and for the receiver of the finance, because when we determine the profit, we will be more connected to the real world than being based on the RFR, which effectively means we are basing it on government bonds. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sheikh Al-Ghari, for that response to the question. So are there any other response on that? Maybe from other panels? Yeah, Prof. Akram wants to say something.
Just a quick one. I think the constraint that we have is that we are playing rugby in a football field. So we are operating within the conventional framework. So that is the reason why our pricing mechanism, I mean, to a certain extent, it has to follow, you see, the same framework of conventional. And the other thing is that I think the monetary system, it is a conventional, even the regulatory regime that we are in. So there are a lot of constraints, I would say, that for us to come up with an alternative. We can come up with an alternative benchmark, but whether it is applicable on the ground or not, that is also, I think, a tedious issue, whether the central bank will allow such thing or not, issue of arbitrage and whatnot. All these, I think, have to be taken into consideration. So these are among the constraints that I can foresee. But having said that, I strongly believe that we have to work towards having our own benchmark, inshallah.
Inshallah. I would love to see, like Professor Al-Ghari mentioned, maybe we can try first, maybe in a some kind of sandbox scenario to see whether we can sort of link between the pricing in the real economy and in the financial market. So with that, I would like to thank all the scholars for their inputs and insights in the various issues that was discussed. And I would like to ask for a round of applause to all our scholars from the audience. So with that, thank you again, and I would like to hand over the mic to the moderator. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
عليكم السلام ورحمة الله.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Thank you to all the scholars, and we would like now to invite Tuan Haji Makhtar Abdullah to present the mementos. Of course, to the scholars virtually here, the mementos will be sent to you, couriered to you especially. Shuyukh al-Ma'ali.
Shukran. Thank you very much.
Shukran. Thank you very much in advance.
In advance.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes.
جزاكم الله خير الجزاء الله يحفظكم ويحميكم. With that, we end our session and also Kliff 2022. But before that, oh, okay, yeah. Thank you so much. But before that, we have a quiz. Yeah. Sorry. We have a quiz that we have promised, the last quiz. Now the question is opened. Can we have the QR code? This is yeah. Quickly scan the QR code, and the first person to give the correct answer will win the last prize. Muhammad Khairul Ikwan bin Jamil, congratulations. Congratulations. Can we have? Oh, okay. Can we have Tuan Haji Makhtar again to present the gift worth 400 ringgit? Finally. And the closing remarks, dipersilakan.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Well, it's been a while since the last we gathered physically to discuss and address about issues and concern on Islamic finance in Kliff event. We had our virtual event last year, and Alhamdulillah this year we managed to do a hybrid event. It is an honor for us to be part of this important event with CERT, the organizer, Amani, Hisham Sobri and Kadir, and IBIM for this remarkable 17 Kliff event. We had a fresh amanah from His Royal Highness Sultan Nazrin Muizzuddin Shahid Shabini Almarhum Sultan Azlan Muhibbuddin Shah Al-Ma'furullah, the Sultan of Perak Darul Rizwan, and the Royal Patron for Malaysia Islamic Finance Initiative. We also had an important reminder from Tan Sri Dr. Muhammad Daud Bakar during his opening remarks. About 51 distinguished speakers and moderators updated us with latest information and the way forward virtually and physically the last 2 days. I believe we have benefited from their contribution and sharing. We thank you for your active participation. Of equal importance, if not more so, is the networking opportunities that gathering of this nature to all Kliff participants. Renewal of old friendships and making new acquaintance from various parts of the world and industry is the value-added aspect which makes times off from the myriad course of office and virtual meeting to attend this event all more worthwhile. It is hoped that the topics selected for deliberation and are all satisfactory. The scheduling, inshallah, allows the delegate with ample time to mingle and interact with each others. In closing, on behalf of the organizer, CERT, Amani, Hisham Sobri, Kadir, IBIM and Asas, I would like to extend our gratitude to Ministry of Finance, Bank Negara Malaysia, Securities Commissions, to the sponsors, the partners, and the last, but certainly by no means of least, conference delegates, the Secretariat team, for making Kliff 2022 a successful event. For those who continue staying for Kliff 2022 Muzakarah, see you all tomorrow with another fruitful input, inshallah. For those who only attended Kliff session, we have a safe journey home. Please continue to stay safe and see you all at the next edition of Kliff and ICMS 2022, inshallah. Let me also take this opportunity to seek forgiveness for any shortfall, and it is an honor to have everyone in this 17th Kliff 2022. Jazakumullah khair. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh, and thank you very much.
Thank you to Tuan Haji Makhtar Abdullah, and also from me, I bid you all selamat jalan dan semoga selamat sampai ke destinasi. Allahu yahfizik wa yusallimik. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Until we meet again for the mudhakara, for those joining us tomorrow. Thank you.